order. Today is Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. This is a City Council voting meeting. I think we have a lineup of announcements today. We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I would just like to say welcome back, John Palladini. Gosh, it seems like it's been forever, and we have missed you, but I would tell you, your team did a great job supporting us. And you've been a great leader for them, and they were great leaders when you were gone. So thank you for your service, and welcome home.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So if I can
Please.
indulge me a little bit, I placed on each of your, in front of you, a unit coin, which is also called a challenge coin. You're probably familiar with it for people in the military. And this is a sort of a symbol of camaraderie, of belonging, and of support. And so I thank you for your support. And if you look at and it's of course got Arizona flag, part of the larger task force Spartan. So you notice the Spartan helmet. And on the back, the unit sort of slogan was ad honorem, which means we do it for the honor. Yeah. And so I think, this applies to you all as well. You certainly don't do it for the money. Yeah. You do it for the honor. And it's an honor to serve. So I appreciate all the support you've given me and given my team in my absence. And I'm so glad to be back. So thank you very much.
John, thank you. This means a lot. Thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem, anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay. Phil?
Thank you, Mayor. It was our intention originally to present a proclamation to honor the 75th anniversary of the victory in Europe during World War II, known as VE Day, which will be May 8th of this year. However, due to the restrictions of public attendance, we've elected not to present proclamations since there's really no one to present it to. So our intention is to create a proclamation, and we will be presenting it to various veterans groups so that the surviving World War II veterans will have an opportunity to know that this victory over the Axis powers in the European theater occurred on May 8th in 1945. So, unfortunately, the next City Council meeting we intend to have would be after this date. So we will still do our best to recognize those surviving veterans and honor their service in recognition of this particular day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Good. All right, we're going to move on to an invocation with Pastor Matt Kottman, Solid Rock Church, and pledge led by Councilman Good.
Would you join me in prayer? Father, we thank you for your goodness to us as we consider the times that we're in, extraordinary times, times when leadership is needed to bring calm, peace, direction, courage for the faint-hearted. Father, we think about our leaders here in this room, that you would help them to lead well in this time, that you would use them to bring our city, our loved city, to a place of assurance of safety where it's not felt, and confidence that our governments and our local officials and our civil servants are doing all they can to help us as a citizenry. And so we thank you for the help that you've given, that you will continue to give. We thank you for the wisdom that you grant. And Father, we pray for this meeting that you would grant wisdom to know how to proceed on the issues that are at hand today, that you would lead and direct our servants here, our leaders, for the good of the people of the city of Prescott. We bless you and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in pledging allegiance to the United States of America.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Pastor. Please call roll.
Mayor Mangarelli,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr,
Here.
Councilman Blair,
Here.
Councilman Good,
Here.
Councilmember Roosing,
Here.
Councilwoman Scholl, here, and Councilman Sischka. Here. All are present.
All right. Thank you for that. We have a presentation.
2020 census update.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Bryn Stotler, Director of Community Development. It's a pleasure to be back in chambers with you all today. Just wanted to bring you a midstream update on census activities. Statewide, I think we've had a tremendous response. Some stats, to reflect back. Census Day was April 1st. That didn't change. Census Day, being April 1st, is a reference point for the Census Bureau. So when you respond to your census questionnaire, whether you have or will, you utilize April 1st as the day to reflect who were members of your household on that date. And that is really the purpose of them naming a census day. To not get too deep in the numbers, our U.S. national response date to date as of today is 53.4%. Yavapai County's response rate is about 51.7%. Prescott's response rate is 62.3%. And there are a number of other response rates that reflect our regional participation, but I have to say it's very impressive to see what our local communities in the Yavapai County region do when it comes to this civic responsibility. They've been very responsive. One of the newest additions to this census that was different about this census than any other census is the fact that you can do online response. Online response has been hovering between 45 and 54% of all responses. So more than about half or a little more than half the people, as a general rule, are utilizing that online tool and the ease of responding in that manner. Yavapai County's response rate beats the Arizona statewide average as of today by about 1%. So we can be very proud of the fact that our citizens take this seriously. Most of the inquiries that I've received from citizens have to do with not having received a mailing. So we know that mailing started going out mid-March. March 12th through the end of March was really the window of time when they were going to start the phased mailings. And while a lot of people did receive mailings and did use their 12-digit identifier to go online and respond, if that's the way they chose to, folks have been calling me saying, I haven't received anything yet. So what do I do? You can wait because the Census Bureau does not mail all census questionnaires and or census mail drops at the same time. That would be quite an onerous achievement for the U.S. Postal Service. So they do it in phases. And if you haven't received a mailing, it is not something to be concerned about. You probably are in the pipeline to receive a mailing, even at this point. But there is a way to do your response without having your mailing, and that's why I've got this exhibit up on the screen for you guys. When folks call me, I have them navigate to this page, 2020census.gov. This is the U.S. Census Bureau main page, and you can see those two green respond buttons circled. Clicking on either one of those will land you to the same place. And I'll show you what that screen looks like. And then you have a start questionnaire button. People who haven't received their mailing were concerned about starting their questionnaire, not having their mailing in hand. But the Census Bureau has designed this response field and starting the questionnaire in a way that's very intuitive and allows people to respond utilizing their residence address. When you click Start Questionnaire, you get to a third screen. And this is one that a lot of people have missed, this black oval. If you don't have the identifier because you didn't receive a mailing, you simply click on that hot link and it puts you into the questionnaire without having to use the 12-digit identifier at all. Then it will ask you what your residence address is and start the simple 6 to 8 questions, I think, that are a part of the census questionnaire. So that's really been the most common inquiry that I've gotten for folks that haven't received a mailing. How do I respond if I haven't received a mailing? It's very, very simple to do as long as you have internet access and can make it to the 2020census.gov website. So again, the lack of a mailing does not mean that you can't respond. You can go online and respond at any time. So the Census Bureau did make some date adjustments in response to the COVID-19 situation. They didn't change census day. They simply extended the back end of the self-response time frame, and that date has been extended out to October 31st. Final counts, which were originally to be delivered to Washington, D.C. by December 31st, that date has been moved out to April 30th of 2021. And then the redistricting data that our states rely upon for congressional seats and so forth, that is to be delivered back to the states from Washington no later than July 31st of 2021. So it did sort of shove out the timeframes a bit. So we're not going to get some of the information that we had anticipated by early next year. It'll come about midpoint next year. The Census Bureau has also made adjustments to their field operations based on the COVID-19 pandemic. So they're not sending out those in-person enumerators until sometime after June 1st. Folks have also called and said, nobody's knocked on my door. There's a reason for that. And it's because to do it safely, the Census Bureau has had to make some operational adjustments in order to keep their staff safe and also keep the public safe. So if there are enumerators dispatched, they will not be dispatched until after June 1st. And the census continues to push information out to us very, very regularly so that we know when they're changing the operational forecast. The Census Bureau is still seeking part-time employment, part-time employees. So you can still go on to 2020census.gov/jobs, and there still are applications being accepted and assignments are still being filled. That is the information that I get from our partnership specialist. As always, it is important for the public to remember that census data is confidential. All census results go into basically informational lockdown for a period of 72 years, and only statistics are derived from those responses. So no personal data is made public for 72 years after a decennial census. And once again, I'd just like to reiterate that the census's tagline, counting everyone once, only once, and in the right place, continues to stand. We still have the banner up on City Hall. I think our region has done a great job. Mayor Pro Tem Orr, you may have some updates from the state level.
Yes, we had a state meeting 2 weeks ago, and it was kind of fun to be on because they said, wow, Prescott is knocking it out of the park, because we are one of the highest at 62.4. So we have a little friendly competition going on among some of our cities. I talked to Carol Palgutti, he said, I look at it every day, Billy. And so Prescott Valley is at 62.2, and they've really moved up. So we need to put the pressure on Prescott. It's really important. You know, some of our counties have had more of a COVID-19 issue, so you know their numbers are kind of low. But it's so important, I think, as we've seen, how resources are distributed nationally. It's so important that we have the right census data. And so I just encourage everyone, if you haven't put in your census, I'm assuming everybody in this room probably has, but those of you at home, if you haven't, please go online. Please get this done so we can beat the town of Prescott Valley. No. So it is kind of fun. It's fun there's a response map, a self-response, census self-response, and it will tell you all over the nation. Click on a state and it'll tell you what the response rate is. You drill right down to the city and the county. It's a lot of fun to kind of play with, especially in Arizona. So encourage everybody to please complete that census.
I was just curious. So my understanding was pre-COVID-19, college students would be counted at their college campus, but most colleges were closed by April 1st, so it'll be interesting to see what the effect of that is, as most kids were home and not on their campuses.
Yes, Councilwoman Scholl, that is such a great point, and perhaps an unfortunate one, especially in the case of some communities like ours who have a lot of higher education learning centers, and yes, many of those students did go back to their places of residence with their families, and so many of those students will be counted where they were on April 1st, unless they had responded already, and they had before they had school cessation. So.
And if you don't want someone knocking on your door, an enumerator, all you have to do is complete the census, and then they won't come. But if you don't complete the census, they will come and knocking on your door. How many people are in there?
So true.
Any questions, comments from the council? Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Bryn.
Thank you.
Appreciate your leadership. Thank you. Let's move on to item 7A, please.
Discussion regarding updates pertaining to COVID-19.
So let me keep this brief. Today in Yavapai County, we have 78 confirmed cases, 2 deaths, 16 cases in Prescott. What we've seen is the numbers have been extremely low, particularly in Prescott for a number of days, which is good. I appreciate Leslie Horton at the county, her leadership, as well as John Amos at the hospital. They've done a tremendous job. And we don't see any kind of surge at the hospital whatsoever. Their occupancy is down 30-40%. Councilman, do you know? Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And we're fortunate that the elderly and those that had other underlying health conditions have not been affected in a tremendous way in our city, which is great. We're all waiting, I think, for the governor to have an announcement here, if not today, hopefully tomorrow, and we'll see what that brings. We did do 3 virtual town halls for small business, mental health, and youth. Those are well attended, trying to get resources out to our community. I would emphasize to businesses out there to continue to apply and pursue the Paycheck Protection Program, among other opportunities with the Small Business Administration. I know several businesses have been awarded, but there's more money out there, and we need those small businesses to apply. Summer events are still, in place. I was talking to Sherry Heine at the chamber, and I think her first event that she has not canceled is over Memorial Day weekend. It's too early to tell at this point what's going to happen, but I am hopeful and will be petitioning the governor's office to ensure that we have hopefully a good portion of our summer events, yet to be determined. With that said, I think what we've learned here is there's an extremely low mortality rate when you look at the numbers, 0.0 something, 3, whatever, low. We even when the governor does open, we want to make sure that we take care of our elderly folks here that we have in town. But I'm hopeful that we're going to get some good news out of the governor's office here real soon. I look forward to getting the economy going. I think the one thing that we may have lost sight on this a little bit is the other impacts beyond just the virus in terms of the divorce rate, the child abuse, the domestic violence, suicide. We have 6 suicides in Yavapai County at this point in about 3 weeks. So I've impressed upon the governor's office to take a holistic look at this and not just look at the virus alone, but look at the whole picture, because there are impacts that will be lasting for a long time. Not just the economic, but the social impacts are tremendous. I don't think we understand what those look like just yet. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. That's all I have for COVID-19. We'll move on to item 7B.
Organization of council agendas.
So this one I wanted to just kind of inform the council, I guess, here. We had changed how we do our agendas to a large degree, particularly with the consent agenda. We went away from the consent agenda, which you see again here today. The point was transparency and to make sure that we weren't trying to do anything in a consent where the public wasn't sitting here in the room or have that opportunity. And that's been fine, but in order to continue to expedite meetings moving forward, not knowing how long we're going to continue to do this, what I'm suggesting is that some innocuous, I don't know the right word, but I'll use that one, whether it's approving of minutes or agreeing to a non-matching grant or appointing someone to, in this case, help with cost recovery. You can see on this agenda there's a handful of items, particularly very low amounts of money with a small grant that we're receiving or whatever, that I think we will continue to we'll go back to a consent agenda, not the same fashion that we were before, but just those that are non-controversial in my opinion. Now, obviously, we can put together a consent agenda and any member at any time could pull anything as usual. That still stands, of course, but I just think there's a handful of these, when you look down this today, that we could put on a consent agenda, not knowing how long we're going to be in this position. So that's just a point of information when you see the next agenda. Any thoughts on that, Mayor Pro Tem?
I would certainly agree with that, Mayor. I think our last meeting, we went several hours, and a lot of it was because of some minutia that would have normally been put in the consent agenda.
Okay. All right, let's move on to item 7C, please.
Approval of minutes for the April 14th, 2020 voting meeting.
Mayor, I move we approve the minutes of April 14th.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Councilman Good, do you have a?
No, I'm just trying to prepare my voting.
Oh, okay. So that's, by the way, this little thing is not on today because it doesn't correspond with the right folks. And we will be doing all voice vote. So if there's no discussion, we'll take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Here.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, item 7D.
Adoption of resolution number 2020-1742, appointing Fire Chief Dennis B. Light as applicant agent on behalf of the City of Prescott cost recovery efforts associated with declared public emergencies.
Motion?
Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 2020-1742.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any discussion? If not, we'll take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Item 7E, please.
Approval of city contract number 2020-183 to accept Arizona Department of Homeland Security Western Region Award Committee fiscal year 2017 reallocation grant funds.
Motion?
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2020-183.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Item 7F, please.
Approval of city contract number 2020-069A1, an amendment to city contract number 2020-069 with Wilming Fan Joint Venture in an amount not to exceed $73,232 for the replenishment of the passenger terminal contingency fund.
Robin is here. Would you like to make a few comments?
Robin Sabata, Airport Director, and good afternoon. So items 7F, 7G, and 7H are actually all related. They include the construction, the funding, and the design for a modification of the terminal hold room area. So in front of you, what you see is this is a passenger-related safety change that's needed to assure that 3 air carrier flights can occur within 2 to 3 hours of each other without exceeding the city's fire code occupancy limits. Now, the original hold room was designed correctly. It was this area over here, and that was appropriate for 2 flights. After we had the groundbreaking, though, we learned from the airline that a third morning departure was going to be happening simultaneous within a 3-hour period. And as a result, we thought that that was a really positive thing for the community because folks had said when they arrived in LA previously, it wasn't in time to make connections. So by moving the flight to the morning, that actually accomplished more connections for the passengers. Furthermore, one other issue that we ran into is that during the summer months, when they take off in the summertime, our runway's too short. And because it's too short, they have to remove available seating and not sell between 5 and 10 seats on every flight for a period of about 3 months over the summer. So by the airline moving it up into the morning, that actually created a real positive opportunity for them to fill every seat potentially. And right now for August, they're back to 3 flights. So they're looking forward to coming back full strength very soon. So what we did is we looked carefully and collaborated with City Manager Lamar, and we decided that the best thing to do, this was always under roof, this area up here. So this is the edge of the roof line, same roof line that's always been there. But this was an open air area that used to be the ADA dog walk. And this was part of the planning in the terminal was easy expandability. So all we're doing is moving this wall to here, and we're moving this wall to here. And what that does is it moves the original hold room seated 62, and there was an additional 13 that could be standing here, 6 in the restrooms, and 20 out here in this open air area. And now that this is enclosed, we actually have now 110 seats. We have circulation area of 13 additional individuals. We've got the restrooms that hold 6. And actually, this is the ADA dog walk area over here now. It takes the odor and the cleaning issue associated with the dog walk and moves it outside, out from underneath the roof. And also, because some legislation is suggesting that mothers' rooms are going to be required in every terminal in the country very soon, this office space was actually converted to a mother's room as part of this. So this is a relatively low-cost way to achieve the extra seating. This meets all of our needs, and actually all 3 flights could be an 82% load factor, and the folks can be seated. So we think this is a great idea. This was approved by City Manager Lamar on March 3rd, and it was taken out of contingency, so it was approved in that manner. We have since gotten the CARES Act funding of $1,040,000 and change, and so approximately $73,000 and change is being used to fund this very small but very meaningful modification to the hold room.
Thank you, Robin. It's good we had that option. You're essentially expanding the terminal before we're even done.
Yes, that's an extra 633 square feet
Yep.
that were approved by the FAA for this expansion.
Very good. Questions, comments from the council? Any public comment?
No, Mayor.
All right. We'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2020-069A1, an amendment to city contract number 2020-069 with Wilmeg Van Joint Venture.
Second.
Motion second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Rusing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Okay. Let's move to item 7G, please.
Approval of city contract number 2020-186 for the acceptance of a CARES Act airport grant in the amount of $1,042,532 as administered by the Federal Aviation Administration.
Motion?
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2020-186 for the acceptance of a CARES Act airport grant in the amount of $1,042,000. Let me say that again, $1,042,532.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? If not, we'll take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Rusing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Item 7H, please.
Approval of city contract number 2019-069A13, an amendment to city contract number 2019-069 with Dibble Engineering in an amount not to exceed $26,768 for design of passenger hold room modifications.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, move to approve city contract number 2019-069A13, an amendment to the city contract number 2019069 with Dibble Engineering in the amount not to exceed $26,768.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Rusing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Item 7I, please.
Adoption of ordinance number 2020-1715 of the Mayor and Council of the City of Prescott, County of Yavapai, Arizona. Authorizing the acceptance of waterline easement agreements from Canyon Run Partners LP and Bethel Development Inc., and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said acceptance.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 2020-1715.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Rusing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Item 7J, please.
Approval of water service agreement application number WSA 20-002 by Michael Forey, representing Yavapai Regional Medical Center.
Hey, Craig.
Afternoon, Mayor, Council. Craig Dotseth, Public Works. So this item that I bring to you first today is approval of water service agreement application for Yavapai Regional Medical Center. So this item is a little out of the norm today, in that normally, without having our subcommittees suspended, this would go in front of the Water Issues Subcommittee first, and then we would bring it forward to the entire council. This item, the applicant is seeking water supply to serve the addition of a 3-story outpatient services building to Yavapai Regional Medical Center West Campus. So this would be adjacent to the YRMCA along Division Street, and right next to the new parking garage that they have going up as well. The water management policy sets forth a water application procedure for this, requiring any project that would need more than 2 acre-feet of water to come before the subcommittee as well as council. So ultimately, the applicant has performed. They submitted the application. They performed a water demand analysis, analyzing the water needs for the project, and their civil engineer that performed that water review ultimately came down with an average daily use of 42,000 gallons a day, or 48 acre-feet per year. How they got to that number is by calculating 300 gallons per bed. And this is an outpatient unit, so it won't have beds, but that is the normal, that is a reasonable multiplier used for hospital industry. And since this is an outpatient building versus overnight inpatient hospital, we definitely feel that the gallons per bed is considered conservative and expected to be less in the long term. However, that is the industry standard when it comes to calculating this type of facility. We also went back and checked that against another project that was reviewed a number of years ago in order to have an idea if it came in the same way. And we came in very close to the same value or amount of water from a previous project that was reviewed. So the applicant has followed all requirements of the water management policy and submitted that applicant. Ultimately, we will track the actual water use via the WRM, the Water Resource Management Model, and then after 3 to 5 years, we will modify the amount of water that's been earmarked for this project to true actual usage from the WRM. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, Craig. One question I have is there any data on what percentage will return to our recharge from this use?
In this type of facility, it's going to be very high. There will be minimal, and actually I was going to say there'll be minimal usage associated with landscaping. However, this new building is covering more of a footprint of the land parcel than the original building had, so there will be less landscaping, so less once used water.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. 90th percentile or something pretty high, you think, in terms of the internal usage.
Should be very high,
Yeah.
yes.
Councilman Blair?
Do you have a number associated with the Pendleton Center of how much they were using acre-foot wise a year, and how does that offset, or did you do an offset based upon the original?
We did not look at the use on that original building to compare.
So basically, it would be less than what you're stating because that building that was there was using water
True.
prior to.
Previous, that's correct.
So there would be a less than what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're talking about the existing building they tore down,
Yeah,
Councilman?
they had water going to that with landscaping. So
Right.
when you look at what the hospital provided as a projection of use, and then understand the original building was using something, there has to be an offset. So
Sure.
the amount that he's using, which will be cool because we'll be able to tell with the worm what the actual use is, and then we'll know that. So thank you.
Councilman Good?
Yeah, I followed the development of this particular project pretty closely, and my same comments were similar to Councilman Blair's. So it's a really low-use outpatient facility for a lot of different kind of non-acute, low water use programs. So having that parking garage will allow vehicles and patients to directly go into each floor of the facility so that it's much more efficient and the water use is really not very concerning to me. So I think, we would get a much higher return of effluent treatment than we would normally see in almost any other type of facility, especially for healthcare. So I think there's very little concern here, and I think it's going to improve the access and the capacity for other outpatient programs as well. So I have no objection at all, and looking forward to having that completed.
Other questions, comments from the council? Public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve water service agreement application number WSA 20-002.
Second.
Motion and second. Please vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Item 7K.
Approval of revision of plat RPT 20-004 for Whispering Rock Commercial Subdivision, extending the southern boundary to include additional property to accommodate the extension of Haas Boulevard to the subdivision.
Hi, George.
How are you, sir?
Good. I will be recusing on this one.
This is a revision of plat of the subdivision that was approved for Whispering Rock. It's a commercial subdivision. The revision of plat is a process that was established by our land development code for situations where the exterior boundary of a subdivision plat is changed. That requires it come back to you for an action. If it's an interior lot change, it's handled administratively and you don't see it. We have another one of those going on for Whispering Rock at the north end. That's being handled administratively. Internal lot lines being moved back and forth. In this particular case, as part of the realignment of the roadway that will create a four-way intersection with Haas Boulevard crossing Willow Creek Road here, one of the things that occurred was you have to change the elevation of the property that you make the connection of the road to, or you change the elevation of the road. In effect, this section of what will be Haas Drive is a ramp. It ramps up to the level of Willow Creek Road. And in the process of that ramping, you have to have stable sides, slopes on either side of the roadway. As part of the design, that encroached into this property. This property belongs to the church, the Spiritual Living Center, sorry. And as a requirement of that, they obtained easements, but the process of expanding into that area also requires that those easements and the expansion incorporate these parcels into the subdivision. So the full extent and the shortest possible explanation of this is the red area is going to be expanded to include these properties. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments from council?
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
I know originally the Center for Spiritual Living there had an agreement with the developer to be able to acquire part of that property, and they were going to offset it with additional parking that the developer was going to make, I think, behind their primary facility. So how has that changed?
It actually hasn't.
The whole property now, or what?
That agreement is still in effect.
Yeah.
What's been done is simply the boundaries of the subdivision have changed. The church property, the current church property is here. Right. The new parking lot will go here. Right. Both of those remain under the ownership of the church. They are just now part of the subdivision, still owned by the church, still have full property owner rights and control of their property. And the agreement is moved forward as it was originally agreed upon by both parties.
Yeah, it was just,
primary access to the church parking lot and to the church itself will be through the new roadway, which will be a much safer situation than their original and current situation of having to make turns off of that roadway, off of Willow Creek Road.
Thank you, George.
And that will be a signalized intersection, right?
It is four-way signalized intersection.
Good. Any other questions or comments?
I have one real quick, if I may.
Yes, please.
George, who's paying for that signalization of that intersection?
It's split among several parties. Okay. Whispering Rock will pay for part, the city will pay for part, there's a benefit, and there was a pre-annexation agreement that laid out who was responsible for which portion of it.
Okay, sounds good.
Very good. Can I have a motion, please?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve revision of plat RPT 20-004 for Whispering Rock subdivision.
Second.
And can we vote? Sarah?
Councilman Blair.
Yes.
Councilman Good.
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing.
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl.
Yes.
Councilman Sischka.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr.
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
Very good. The mayor's back, and we'll move on to the next item.
Adoption of ordinance number 2020-172 of the Mayor and Council of the City of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending Title II, Chapter 2-1, Section 2-1-8, and Resolution number 2020-1737 of the Mayor and Council of the City of Prescott, County of Yavapai, Arizona, declaring as a public record the document filed with the city clerk entitled 2-1-8 Utilities Division, Provision of Water to Areas Outside of City Limits, Rules and Regulations.
Clyde. Good afternoon, council members. Clyde Halstead with the City Legal Department. This code change would just allow for water service outside of city limits pursuant to an intergovernmental agreement. If you will recall, we have historically had this provision in our code. We removed it last November with the concern about serving water outside of city limits. Now that some time has passed, we're at the point where we would like to use this again, so we'd like to add this back to the code. This would only allow for water service pursuant to intergovernmental agreements. This won't do anything other than that. So each IGA is its own entity or its own animal. It would have to come to the city, seek approval, seek public vote, public comment, all of those kinds of things.
All right. Questions, comments from the council?
It would ensure that those agreements would come to the Water Issues Committee and then be passed on to the city council as a whole?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Good?
Mayor, thank you, first of all. I would prefer that this particular amendment be tabled until we have sufficient opportunity for the public at large to be able to understand what the potential impacts can be, not only for this proposed IGA, but how it would affect future IGAs that may come for the public over the period of time. We agreed as a council to try to avoid controversial issues while we were limiting public participation and the ability for the public to be able to make comments, make potentially extemporaneous comments because they would be allowed into the council chambers, being required to understand the impacts of something like this in advance and then try to put comments presented online, I think is insufficient for something of this nature. Some of the things that I consider when I'm considering issues like this is, number one, does this have to be done? I'm not sure that this has to be done. And number two, does it have to be done now? I don't know that it has to be done now. There's not an emergency. There's not a critical need for this change to happen right now when we are in this kind of restricted public input situation. I'm a big proponent of public input and transparency, and something of this nature needs to have maybe at the least a study session where the public can voice their concerns and have those concerns properly addressed. And I just think that it's inappropriate to consider this today.
Thank you, Phil. I'd like to totally agree with you 100%. And I also feel that we should not be making such a crucial change to our water policy during our shutdown with no public input, no study session, no transparency. And will it hurt us if we wait till June and we can have a full public meeting, have a study session. And I think that is exactly what the citizens would like.
Other questions, comments from the council?
Well, then I'd like to make a motion that we table this issue, item 7L, to a future time when we can have more public input. How should I phrase this?
Five years from now?
No, not at all.
I would suggest to, if you're going to try and table it, to either to a date certain or to a date not earlier than.
Well, I don't think we have a date certain here until the restrictions of our public meetings are lifted.
What about with an intention to do it as soon as possible with a full normal meeting format?
Could that work? Okay, as soon as the restrictions on public attendance in the council chambers are appropriately lifted, that we can entertain public comments, then I think that would be appropriate time to revisit this.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Mayor, I also value transparency. We've been talking about this for a couple of years since I've been on the board. This is an opportunity to have an agreement with Chino Valley and allowing them, or actually any city, IGA, but particularly the town of Chino Valley. There's a church there right now that does not have fire protection, and they have our water running right in front of it. It's simple that this needs to pass in order for us, and every application will still come to the water subcommittee, the water sub-issues committee, and it will come to council. Everything will be aired before public. You know, I just feel that we were elected by the citizens of Prescott, and we need to move ahead with the business, doing the business for the citizens of Prescott. I believe this is not something that is controversial. I would disagree with Councilwoman Rusine that this is not controversial. It's not blanket water outside the city. It is an intergovernmental agreement which will allow Chino Valley to go ahead and do some commercial development, will allow this church to be able to apply to have water to protect their congregation. I mean, this is not, I think we're making this much more than what it is, and I believe that this is doing the people's business the way we should. Michael, have people been able to make public comment to this?
I can certainly read the public comments that we've received on this item if you'd like.
We will get to that. Anything else, Mayor Pro Tem?
No, that's it. I just think to say that we're not being transparent as we go about doing this, I think we are being transparent, and I think this is an issue. We've wanted to provide water to that church for a while, and we cannot do it without passing this ordinance.
Councilwoman Scholl.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't necessarily have an issue waiting on this for, just a few more months until things are hopefully back to normal. I think, definitely I agree, Billy, with you that this is something that we need to do and will really hopefully repair our relationship with the town of Chino.
Okay.
And my intention is to, cooperate with them. I don't have a problem waiting as long as the intention to wait is to move forward with this. And really the intention is to be transparent, not just to stalemate this and keep it in lingo, so that's kind of my feeling. I don't have a problem waiting as long as the intention is truly about transparency and not just holding up this item because someone doesn't support it.
Councilmember Rusing.
I truly sympathize with Chino's plight, but with that in mind, we should not take this decision lightly. This will accelerate the pumping of our groundwater, depletion of our aquifer, increasing our overdraft, and will fuel urban sprawl, because this IGA does not just apply solely to Chino Valley, as our legal department has said. It applies to IGAs that can apply to the county. It can apply to Prescott Valley. We can run water out to Prescott Valley. It circumvents our city charter in our annexation, and we can run water to any district, any taxing entity. We can run water all over. Will be a travesty, and we cannot take this lightly. This will be the tipping point. 10 years from now, when people look back at Prescott and they say, what happened? It used to be such a great place. Now it looks just like Phoenix. This is the day.
Well overplayed,
Mr.
Councilwoman.
Mayor, if I can just clarify.
Well overplayed.
This item is just about the code change to allow for intergovernmental agreements to provide water outside of city limits. Any discussion of the Chino Valley IGA would be the next item.
Councilman Sischka, then Scholl, then I think have Blair, and then you had your hand up. So, Sischka.
Mayor, I'm going to wait until the next issue on the agenda.
Okay, Councilwoman Scholl.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Rusing, that's totally disingenuous to say that there has been zero discussion of an IGA with Prescott Valley, zero discussion about an IGA with the county or any other district. This item right now allows us to talk about IGAs. The only IGA that's on the table is the one with Chino Valley. So to say that this policy is going to allow us to serve water outside of the city limits right now is false.
I'm talking about this agenda item, not the next one.
Well, you mentioned IGAs. This code change allows us to discuss IGAs, but you made the insinuation that we already have IGAs in place ready to go, that we would serve water outside the city limits.
I didn't mean that. I meant that this opens the door to have IGAs with pretty much any entity out there.
Any IGA would go to the Subcommittee on Water Issues in front of the council for public review, for public comment. I think that's important to express, is that there's a process for this to happen. Changing this code doesn't mean tomorrow we can serve water outside the city limits to anyone, anywhere that we want. I just wanted to clarify that, because I think that's an important point to make, that this is not just a blanket policy, this is a code change. And like I said, I'm not opposed to waiting a few months for this, but I don't appreciate the disingenuous comments that this is a blanket policy.
Councilman Good, I think, or where was I here? Councilman Blair, go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. We've been talking about this forever, and the whole idea of transparency is a joke when we are out here doing transparency every single day. Transparency is only used based upon the people that don't want to see something happen, to use it as a negative connotation. We've been nothing but transparent. That's why we haven't passed this yet. The same folks have disagreed with our philosophy of why we should be in control of our water. By state law, we have control of our water, being an AMA. We can serve water. One thing it does, and everybody keeps forgetting about this, is the future of our families and our kids. It takes wells out of the service in the county if we decide to have an IGA in the county, and we put it on potable water with recharge under the city's rules and regulations. And it has to come back to the city and the Water Issues Committee every time something's to take place. For there to be the comment that we're going to open the door and have North Phoenix in here in the next 10 years is absolutely bizarre to me.
Councilman Good.
Thank you, Mayor. My objection, I'm not really objecting to this per se. I'm just saying that the public at large has approached me with a lot of questions about what this means and what it might mean in the future. And as long as we are limiting the attendance in this chamber, we're limiting immediate comments from the public, and I value those comments. I don't necessarily always agree with them, but I value them. And I think it's important for the public at large to know that their concerns are properly addressed. So having this restricted public input, I think, is simply inappropriate for a controversial issue of this nature. So if we can just table this and postpone it until these restrictions are lifted, then we can consider all of the public's concerns, and I'm not using this to try to say that I'm not concerned about Chino Valley's ability to expand their commercial corridor and generate some commercial activity up there. It just happens to be that we are going to be considering such an IGA at the immediate next item on the agenda. And that should be looked at separately. But this change in water policy outside the city limits doesn't just apply to them. It'll apply to every public entity that possibly may approach us over the next, who knows? I mean, when we change this water policy and ordinance, it's open-ended. The IGA has a separate termination itself. So I just believe that now is not the time. There is no essential requirement that this be done immediately. We have the time to allow the public to know what this is, have their concerns addressed, and then deal with individual IGAs as they come forward.
One last question, Mayor.
Yep.
Clyde, how many meetings have we had on this issue?
Well, on serving,
Just get close.
on serving water outside of city limits, 20.
Thank you. I think the comments have been well thought of, well made, well presented. And once again, we're waiting for what?
So speaking of public comment, John, would it make sense if we take the public comment now on this motion? Or when would be appropriate to have our public comment entered?
Actually, I've read the comments that the clerk received, at least to the ones up to the start of the meeting.
Okay.
Most of them deal with this specific issue, so
Okay.
it probably does make sense
Yeah.
to hear those comments now,
Sure.
since they're all about timing.
Okay. Let's take public comment then.
Let me make sure that they're talking about this item and not the next item. I want to, if that's.
Yes, they are.
Okay, let's go to that.
Okay. First public comment is from Patricia Uraro. As a Chino Valley homeowner who has been a resident for the last 20 years, I vote. See, here's my question, John. They did put item 7L. However, they allude to item 7M as well. A couple of them, not all of them.
I would just consider it a comment to both items L and M, and you read it for L, and if the council wants you to read it into the record for M, or just refer back to the L item, that's fine. But I would read them for both. If they refer to L and M, read them for both.
Okay. Thank you. I'll start over. As a Chino Valley homeowner who has been a resident for the last 20 years, I vote nay to Prescott pumping water out from under current Yavapai residents. The water will benefit homes outside of the present city limits of Prescott. This whole proposition is so transparent, it's almost laughable. Note I say almost. Just another example of the big guy ranchers selling their land, which they have every right to do, and squashing the little guy. The little guy is me. I live off a well. I'd prefer it not get sucked dry by a community of cracker box homes. I realize the ranchers have been generous in other areas, i.e. donations to city and private concerns. Maybe that puts a lot of people in their pockets. I don't know, just wondering. As a longtime resident, I would appreciate my needs being met, water, for someone who doesn't even live here. If Prescott wants to make money, truck the water in and sell it to the cracker boxes. Win-win proposition. I really don't know why no one has thought of this lucrative proposition, considering the harebrained one currently on the table. The holes in it are so big, you can drive a truck through them. Howard Mechanic. There are two major problems with this proposal. Number one, the substance, and number two, the timing. This proposal has very little resemblance to proposals that we were presented last year. Last year's proposals regarding serving water outside of city limits were promoted as a method to help our area reach safe yield. This proposal also claims to help our area reach safe yield, but in not requiring permanent recharge of treated effluent in a sewer system, it negates all of the basic tenets of the previous proposals and in fact takes us further from Sayfield rather than closer. Council should not be able to exempt any user inside the city limits or out from the requirement that at least 60% of the water supplied will be permanently recharged to help us reach Sayfield. Under today's proposal, even if some of the water is recharged, there is no requirement that other jurisdictions like Chino Valley have to permanently recharge the treated effluent. They can just pump it out again. If a new customer doesn't connect to sewer and recharge, then all the groundwater supplied to that customer will be 100% new overdraft, increasing our already large overdraft by the same amount as supplied and making it more difficult for our area to reach Sayfield. As I mentioned last year to council, even if all effluent from new customers would be required to be recharged, I believe this proposal would harm our area's chances to develop and implement a plan to reach Sayfield, because Prescott would lose our considerable leverage based on our privileged water supply. About 8 months ago, the mayor committed to invite all the area parties to meet to develop a plan to reach Sayfield. What happened with that? If some or all of the parties don't want to develop a plan to reach Sayfield, you need to notify the public that the water plan for our area is now officially called planned depletion. I believe that any proposal to provide water to other jurisdictions should come with commitments by those jurisdictions to implement specific programs to do their share to help our area reach Sayfield. If some other area jurisdictions don't sign on, an agreement with just Prescott and Chino Valley would still be helpful. The council proposal doesn't ask Chino Valley to make commitments towards Sayfield. It's about time other jurisdictions besides Prescott make commitments to help our area reach Sayfield. Ralph Hess. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, staff, and public. I urge you to table this proposed amendment of the city's water policy until you can schedule it for a study session and subsequent voting meeting at which the public may participate in council chambers. As you know, this water policy, especially the provisions regarding serving properties outside the city limits, is a controversial topic for many within our community. Although the water policy has been the subject of several public meetings, it has gone through changes. So what is the rush for council action, especially when public participation is restricted incident to the COVID-19 pandemic? I oppose this proposed change to the water policy because it appears you will be using the amended policy to provide water service to private water users outside city limits, rather than limiting the policy to providing water service to other governmental entities for governmental functions. Then he notes specifically the next agenda item, 7M. Would you like me to hold that comment until that item? Okay. Leslie Hoy. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I have two serious concerns about your decision to vote on this important change to the city's water policy today. Number one, lack of public transparency. Why are you doing this now with no opportunity for the public to comment on your discussion? This change is too important to be decided in one hastily arranged meeting behind closed doors and then voted on today without the benefit of a study session. Number two, long-term consequences. The policy change with regard to IGAs appears to be targeted to the agreement with Chino Valley. However, I foresee that this policy could be extended to future agreements that would negatively affect our ability to achieve a sustainable water future for Prescott and our region. I ask that you delay a decision on this policy until the public and the council have the opportunity to adequately study and respond to the proposed change. If you insist on voting today, please explain why a vote today is absolutely necessary. She submitted an amendment to that. However, it's specific to terms within the IGA, so I'll hold that till 7M as well. Gordon Bond. I am appalled that the city of Prescott has, without meaningful public input and in the middle of the worst pandemic in over 100 years, chosen to vote its approval of the IGA water without annexation policy change. This change will negatively affect our ability to achieve a sustainable water future for Prescott and our region. It is clear that City Council believes that it has no obligation to allow its citizens to voice their opinions on such a consequential decision. I ask that Council delay any further consideration of this proposal until it demonstrates a commitment to transparency by holding both a public meeting as well as a study session. I welcome the opportunity to meet with you to review the reasons why the proposed IGA policy is unwarranted as currently written. And that is all I have received.
I have one comment. It's from Paula Burr, and is it okay if I read it, or do I need to submit it to the city clerk?
Is it intended to be a public comment?
Yes, it is.
It should be read by the clerk.
Just this last paragraph. The bottom, the one on the bottom, the last paragraph.
Okay, I'm going to read what's on the email. Paula Burr. What's up with this agenda item? Agenda item adoption of ordinance number 2020-1712 and resolution 2020-1713. It looks like this is being put in place so that Prescott can provide commercial water to Chino Valley, but could it also be used to provide water to subdivisions in the county? For example, could the COP enter into an agreement with Yavapai County to provide water for AED's Copperfield Ranch project north of 89A, or for that matter with PV to provide water for Jasper? Thanks, Paula.
Okay. Is that all of the public comment?
Is all of the public comments we have received?
Okay. At this point, we have a motion and a second on the floor to table this agenda item. Unless there's any other comments from the council, we'll take a vote. Okay.
Councilman Blair.
No.
Councilman Good.
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing.
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl.
Yes.
Councilman Sischka.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr.
No.
And Mayor Mangarelli.
No.
Motion fails 4-3.
Okay. At this point, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 2020-1712.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Before we vote, I just want to make a point of information that in the 8 comments we heard from the public, 6 have commented every time we've had comments about water issues, period. And there's nothing that we're going to do as a council to ever make any 6 of those folks happy. So I'm glad to have the second.
Councilwoman Scholl.
Thanks, Mayor. Like I said earlier, I wasn't opposed to waiting, but I do generally support this code change, so I just wanted to make that known.
Okay, we have a motion. Did I hear a second yet? Okay, so we have a motion and second. Any other discussion? And we read all the public comment, so we're ready for a vote.
Councilman Blair.
Yes.
Councilman Good.
No.
Councilmember Roosing.
Absolutely not.
Councilwoman Scholl.
Yes.
Councilman Sischka.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr.
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli.
Yes.
Passes 5-2. And then I also need a motion on the resolution.
Yes, I move to adopt resolution number 2020-1737.
Second.
Motion and second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair.
Yes.
Councilman Good.
No.
Councilmember Roosing.
No.
Councilwoman Scholl.
Yes.
Councilman Sischka.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr.
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli.
Yes.
Passes 5-2.
All right, we're going to move on to item 7M, please.
And I am going to bring in Chino Valley Town Manager. She's on our Zoom call. Cecilia, can you hear us?
Cecilia, can you hear us?
Cecilia, are you on mute? That's always the question, right?
Can you hear us, Cecilia? She's not on mute, so we should be able to hear her.
I see a green on this side.
It's not hovering.
Green on this side.
Well, it's flashing.
Yeah, we're connected. I'm just, yeah, I'm going to just,
What are you going to do?
I'm going to try to call her.
Okay. And if we have to, we can take a second. If we need to, we can always jump to the next agenda item and come back.
Yeah, they were on hold, so they may have stepped away. Let me see if I can get Lois.
Come back to this.
Mayor, your call if you want
Yeah.
to skip over and go back.
Let's go to item 7N while we're trying to get contact.
Okay.
Sarah?
Approval of city contract number 2020-187 and night work with Asphalt Paving and Supply, Inc. for the Wilkinson Drive Pavement Improvement Project. I only have Lois.
Good afternoon again, Mayor and Council. I thought I was going to get to end with an exciting project.
It is an exciting project, though.
And this,
They're all exciting, Craig. Come on.
this isn't water and sewer, but it is exciting.
Hear them?
So, Mayor, Council, this item that I bring forward is to award city contract with Asphalt Paving and Supply to approve construction as well as night work for Wilkinson Drive Pavement Improvement Project. So, okay, so where we are working with. So on this exhibit, the red is the location of this design and this project that's proposed here in this item. This project then will connect directly into the Corsair Avenue extension that we brought forward about a month ago. That is currently under construction, and then the two will go directly together. So as the only access to the airport business park, this project will provide much improved pavement conditions on Wilkinson as well as right off a small portion of Larry Caldwell. And to be frank, our pavement conditions out there in that area are horrific. So this is direly needed. We get this Wilkinson project complete, get Corsair complete, then it opens up the avenues for us to do other preservation and or reconstruction projects in the area, which are much needed. So when I said this is an exciting project, some of the noteworthy points of the project, so we're going about this a little different way than the standard rip it out, reconstruct it, put it back. So this project is recycling and reusing the existing 25-year-old pavement into the subgrade. So we will not be, the contractor will not be removing the existing asphalt, hauling it off as trash, and then bringing in all kinds of other material. The existing asphalt is going to be pulverized in place, as well as we're going to add 6 inches of additional asphalt millings from the city's stockpile at Sundog Ranch Road, and that will all be mixed into the subgrade in order to create that new base course for the roadway. This equates to over 7,000 tons of recycled materials there being used. Then we'll be placing 6 inches of new asphalt on that base material. So in the top lift of asphalt is going to be a rubberized asphalt mix that both rubber as well as SBS polymer is in that. And that top course will have the equivalent of 491 tires worth of rubber in that mix. So another recycled product. And it is estimated the cost of this method of construction is projected to create a savings of about $80,000 on the project. So the contract, as I mentioned, it's going to connect right in with Corsair. So we have a fast completion requirement on this. It's expected to be complete by the end of June. So then it will be complete, and Corsair construction then will be able to tie into it. We advertised this in March and April, received 4 bids. Ultimately, the asphalt paving supply bid here that's being recommended was the low bidder on the project. We've received written confirmation of the bid from Asphalt Paving and Supply. The company's license, bonding, and references and performance on past municipal projects have been verified and determined satisfactory. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Craig. I think you used the word horrendous. I know I've talked to you about this once or twice, this section, but it makes sense to connect these jobs with the Corsair connection. So, but I'm glad it's going to get done. Any questions, comments from the council?
I have a question.
Councilmember Russing.
Yeah. I have a question, Craig. This sounds like a great project, and I certainly agree that it is needed, but in view of our COVID financial restrictions, Mark Woodfield, our budget director, gave a very fabulous presentation, and he was very clear, stating that if we approve anything, we have to be careful that it's a something, essential to public health, safety, that it needs to be done now, that it can't wait. And since we have so many things up in the air with our sales tax and our financing, along with pretty much everyone else, do you feel that this is absolutely critical to be done now and that it can't wait until we fiscally know where we're at because we have so many unknowns now?
Absolutely. We need to go forward with this, as well as we have reviewed existing funding that is currently in place, as well as in May when we go through the budget meetings. Budget and Finance has projected significant downturns in revenue, but we have projected those into the budget to consider the impact on the budget. So the funding is already in place for the projects that we currently are doing, and we will just be in much worse condition if we don't continue forward with these projects that the funding's in place for. As well as during 21, we have projects that are earmarked to consider holding off at least 50% of the way through the year. Then we will look at the revenues and see where they're at. At that point, if revenues have started coming back and we have that positive reinforcement, then we would go forward with projects, but we will not if we do not have that information.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Sischka.
Thanks, Mayor. Craig, this is from the Roads Fund, right?
Yes.
And how long has this project been in the works?
At least 5 years.
So the money's already been put aside, basically, on engineering estimates for this road.
Yes.
With the money we currently have that we have collected over the last 5 years in the Roads Fund.
That's correct.
So it's not coming from the general fund. It's not coming from the water fund. Can't be commingled with anything. It's coming from the Roads Fund, and the money is there.
That's correct. It'd be covered through HERFT revenues from the state, as well as our 1 cent streets sales tax.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Mayor, I'd just like to say I believe this is a project that is going to be a game changer out at the airport. You combine this with the Corsair and wow, it just opens up that airport for commercial development. So I think we will be sitting really well when the economy starts to open back up, and to get this done by the end of June is tremendous.
Larry?
I just have to say one thank you for how you designed that, knowing that those heavy construction vehicles of Hanson concrete mixers and APS and all the stuff that utilize that, putting that much material as the base and then 6 inches of asphalt on top of that will ensure that the city of Prescott won't have to do anything with that for a long time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve city contract number 2020187.
Second.
Motion and second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Rusing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
And Mayor, I'd like to move to approve night work on an as-needed basis.
Second.
Motion and second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Rusing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
All right. Now we'll go back to item 7M. And I'm wondering, do we have Cecilia on the phone?
Cecilia, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Adoption of resolution number 2020-1743, approving city contract number 2020-185, an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Chino Valley to provide water for commercial uses.
Well, good afternoon again. This is a fairly monumental IGA. If you know anything about the history between the Chino Valley and the city of Prescott regarding water, you'll know that it's a history filled with animosity, distrust, really a refusal to ever work together. Some of the largest, most important water law cases in Arizona are titled things like Chino Valley versus the city of Prescott and Prescott versus the town of Chino Valley. Today, you have an opportunity to change that, to begin that regional cooperation discussion, to begin working together with our regional water users. So, as you're all aware, we currently serve most of Chino Valley for residential water, for homes. That's through an agreement we have with the Chino Valley Irrigation District. We don't have any obligation under that contract or any way under that contract to serve the town of Chino Valley for commercial purposes. Additionally, because we already have water infrastructure in place for all of those residential uses, there's a true disincentive for Chino Valley to put in a parallel system right next to ours. It just doesn't make financial sense to put two water systems in place right next to each other. Because of that, the town of Chino Valley has truly been held back as far as developing economically because they don't have water service there. Businesses can still develop on wells and septics, but there's very few that really want to take that risk, particularly larger economic development opportunities. Today's agreement would allow the city of Prescott to serve commercial water within Chino Valley, specifically along their commercial corridor. I'll show you a map of that now. You can see it's essentially just the length of the highway through Chino Valley.
That's the limited area, Clyde?
That's the only area that commercial service would be allowed pursuant to this IGA.
Perfect.
And Clyde, can you tell us it's East Perkinsville, right?
Yeah, Perkinsville Road at the north. And then at the south, I believe it's just south of Outer Loop. There's Outer Loop here.
Yeah.
So this would only allow for commercial development. Wouldn't allow for new residences, wouldn't allow for new agricultural efforts, only for commercial businesses. The way this is set up is essentially people would be able to apply directly to the city of Prescott for water service when that request is, and then the request would be treated pursuant to the city's codes. So requests for under 2 acre feet could be administratively approved. Requests for larger than 2 acre feet would come to the council, well, first to the Water Issues Subcommittee, and then to the council as a whole for its approval, determining on what the project is. We, out of necessity, have to waive a couple of our requirements. The first is that any project return at least 60% of the water to the city's treatment center. Obviously, we don't have sewer in the area, so there's no way for anyone to return 60% of their water to the city. Second, the requirement that people connect to sewer when it's available. We can't require that they connect to the city sewer system because we don't have a city sewer system there. They will have the opportunity to connect to Chino Valley's sewer system. When they do, the town of Chino Valley and the city of Prescott will essentially split those effluent credits. We'll split them 50-50. So half of the water that's recharged, those credits will go to Chino Valley, half will go to the city of Prescott. All of the other requirements from the city of Prescott, like our landscaping code, our development and impact fees, the requirement that people install their own infrastructure for hooking up to our systems, and our landscaping code will all continue to apply. Most importantly, the 30% additional fee to outside of city water users will also apply. Yes? Sure. So it's probably a little hard to tell on the map, but there are currently city of Prescott water lines everywhere that's blue. Those blue lines are the city lines. You can see that we have a line currently throughout the entirety of this area that will serve any commercial development to here between Road 1 North and Center Street. Any additional development here would have to install infrastructure on their own. There will be no expense to the city of Prescott to install new infrastructure in any of these projects. Currently, we have one commercial developer that has requested service. It's for a church. It's I believe it's here at the Outer Loop. It's not even water service. It's just for fire protection. They just need water to run through their lines for their sprinklers. Currently, our code does not allow it. There's a line in front of their business. This would allow them to be the first applicant under this IGA. I'm happy to take any questions. I know that the mayor and town manager from Chino Valley are with us by phone, and I believe they submitted a comment as well.
Yeah, well, let's, If you guys can hear us there, Cecilia and Mayor Croft, would you like to make a comment at this point?
Mayor Croft is not here at the time. He did submit a letter to endorse this. I have our Public Works Director, Frank Marbury, is here. I would just say that in discussions with our council that we think this is a positive step forward for both the City of Prescott and for Chino Valley.
Okay. Anything else there on your end, Cecilia?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your consideration.
Can
Yeah,
I
thank
ask
you.
Cecilia?
You know, it's interesting, the angst over all of this. It baffles me because it's such a narrow thing we're approving to have commercial use just within this zone. For anyone to say there's urban sprawl is absolutely asinine and false. Furthermore, it goes through all the normal procedures as outlined by Clyde and all of the existing code. So I just think this is an absolute no-brainer for us to finally cross the finish line of partnering with our good neighbors to the north to allow them to control their own destiny in this development, in this commercial corridor. The opposition to this, I'm lost on it. I'm absolutely lost on any opposition of why we would not want to partner with our neighbors in Chino Valley and offer them the opportunity to control their destiny with commercial development. I don't understand it, and I never will. Councilmember Rusi.
Thank you. I have a question for Cecilia. Is she still there?
Yes.
Thank you, Cecilia. A year ago, there was a special election, and it involved two elements, roads and water, and both of them were voted down by the citizens of Chino Valley. And I was wondering if you could educate me why the water element was voted down.
I don't know that I can conclusively say exactly why the water element was voted down, except for the fear of some people of too much growth.
So
They don't understand necessarily water and the relationship. Most people didn't even know we have 4 different water companies within our corporate boundaries.
And one of the elements of that special election was to allow the Chino Valley to purchase water districts. And then on the first page of this agreement, this IGA allows the town council to make that same, pass that to purchase water agreements after it was voted down. And also, why was there no study session or a town hall concerning this? It's just gone to a vote.
You mean a town hall with the city of Prescott?
No, with your voters. Why did you not have a town hall for this?
Town halls, and we had lots of public outreach.
Concerning this IGA and this commercial?
Oh, not concerning the IGA, no, just concerning the potential purchase of water companies.
So you haven't had any study sessions concerning this IGA mainly because of the shutdown, or?
We haven't had, we work on mayor's and council's direction. They didn't choose to have this in a public session yet for public consumption.
Because we did have one comment from one of your citizens, Christina Guerrera, who was against this, and I was just wondering why there wasn't more transparency before you brought this to your vote. Thank you very much. Also, I have a question for our legal department. Why it sounds like this church that's already, and I have nothing against St. Germain's, but the church has applied already for a permit. Will they still be allowed to use their well, or will their well have to be abandoned? If this is only for fire flow, how are they going to flush their toilets and run their kitchen?
They haven't made an application, so I can't speak to individual applicants. When they do it, we'll know more about it.
So they will have to abandon their well?
I do not know. I haven't seen an application.
Isn't that our water policy? When you hook up to city water, you have to abandon your wells?
That's correct.
So this is up in the air?
I can't tell you about individual applications. We haven't seen one.
Oh, so maybe they're not aware of that stipulation?
They haven't made an application.
Okay,
Until
thank
they
you.
make an application, I don't know what they're requesting or what my response to you could be.
Oh, I thought you said they already did.
They have not, no.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Thanks, Mayor. I just think it's important to point out that just because we enter into this IGA does not mean that every person who chooses to have a commercial business is going to take advantage of this. And if there's folks who don't want economic development in their community, then they don't have to take advantage of this opportunity. But to dictate to another municipality what they can and can't do in terms of economic development, I think is just unfair. I mean, we talk a lot on this council about economic development and how important it is to our community. And that's statewide, nationwide. Economic development is really important. So I think it's a great opportunity for Chino and to partner with them. And additionally, all of the time we complain about how the state legislature is imposing restrictions on us. This is essentially doing the same thing to another municipality. And so just to think about how frustrating that is for us, it has to be frustrating for Chino. And I think this is a great opportunity to talk about regional cooperation, get the ball rolling, and kind of put our money where our mouth is, and not just talk about regional cooperation, but actually be cooperative regionally.
Michael?
Mayor and Council, I hope this is on topic. I just wanted to shout out to Cecilia and the team in Chino. As Clyde alluded to, there's a lot of water under the bridge. There's a lot of angst and animosity over the years. And for her to give us a clean slate to negotiate something that's good for her community and ours, I just want to say thank you to her and her council for being open-minded that we don't want to be the evil big brother. We want to work with them.
Councilman Sishka?
Thank you, Mayor. You know, the folks who made comments on that last item that we had, they all see a boogeyman behind every door. I don't live life that way. We shouldn't live life that way as the city of Prescott. I think that it's time that we move on. It's time that we join arms with Chino Valley and go down the road of economic success. You know, for a long time, there's been a lot of animosity between Chino and Prescott on just about everything. But water is a huge, huge issue. You know, a sewer system in Chino Valley, that's their issue, and that's something that, Cecilia, you guys are going to have to figure out. But from the standpoint of water, isn't it time that we finally got this taken care of? You know, we for a long time basically put our thumb on Chino Valley and their economic development. It was almost like if Marie Antoinette was on council, she'd say, let them eat cake. Well, I'm ready to move past that. And I'm ready to join Chino Valley in mutual economic opportunity. And so I am totally for this situation.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Cecilia, I would like for you to just take this message back to your council. I remember when we all met, I don't know, probably a year and a half ago, and you could just feel the tenseness in the room. So I'm very proud that what we're doing today is going to allow the town of Chino Valley, that community, to do what they need to do. I mean, I look at your commercial area, and there's so much opportunity out there. But this is going to let that happen, Cecilia. And I guess I want to say I'm just proud to be part of this council. And you know, a lot of our employees in the city of Prescott that come here every day to work, they live in the community of Chino Valley. A lot of our employees live in the, you know, the town of Chino Valley. When I'm out on that way and driving through the Dells, the lights coming in the morning are just a stream of lights. So I just think that we're all in this together. And I think it's about time. And so I agree with the mayor on this. I can't imagine the negatives on this at all. It doesn't even register with my head.
Councilmember Rusing?
Thank you. I have one question, and it's a legal question. Councilman Shishka has a financial interest in this corridor with Olson's Grain, and should he disclose that, and should he be recusing himself from this
I
discussion?
appreciate you asking that, council member. But I knew about this a while back, and so I asked legal. So legal, what did you have to say about that?
Councilman Shiska, you don't have a conflict here. This is a generally applicable IGA to all of the business owners within the area. It's not going to benefit you in particular. You don't have any reason to recuse yourself here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Blair.
Cecilia, there?
I am.
I'll have to tell you, it's been 19 long years. And I would tell you, going back to Dan Main, through Karen Fan, through Chris Marley, through Mr. Croft, and now to a new mayor here in the future, today is a bright day.
I agree. Thank you.
Councilman Good.
I just want to address a couple of language issues in the IGA document. First of all, the request for termination by either party was 60 days notice without any reason whatsoever. The notification is to be sent to the town manager of Chino Valley if our party, if our city chooses to activate that clause. But if the town of Chino Valley chooses to activate it, the agreement here only references the Public Works Department. So I would suggest that we add the city manager of Prescott to be properly notified for any notices that would come forward.
Duly noted.
Secondly, I still would like to, since we're expecting that our ordinances for landscaping and other uses by commercial customers under our city code be also applied to commercial customers in Chino Valley. And we require a minimum of 60% of the effluent be treated and recharged. And we're waiving that here for the transfer of 50% of the long-term storage credits for the city. Since we're saying that all of our codes and ordinances for proper use of water will apply, then I think 60% also should apply at this point as well. So I don't know if we can amend that or whether the management in Chino Valley would be willing to accept that. So Cecilia, what's your comment?
Councilman Good, I'm going to go ahead and cut off Cecilia. She is the town manager. She can't bind the town council, obviously. If you would like to try to amend the agreement, certainly that's something you have the option of doing. But we can't negotiate an agreement with Cecilia over the phone.
Good point.
So otherwise it's 50-50, Clyde, is that?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And the reason behind that is that we want to incentivize Chino Valley to install that new sewer.
Sure.
Otherwise, we would ask for all of it. But because they don't have it there, we need to give them a reason to do it.
Sure.
Well, I think 60% is a modest change, and it does align us with all of our other city codes that we expect commercial customers to use. Secondly, there is a reference here to our city's Water Issues Committee, and the committee that makes those decisions is defined in our list of boards, commissions, and committees, along with how it's defined in our website as the subcommittee on water issues. I know that may seem minor in nature, but many times when contracts the incorrect reference to a particular name, you can have future problems in the long run.
Duly noted. We can make that change.
Add that, and then those are the only recommendations I would make. So, do I motion?
Councilman Blair, would you like to make a motion on this?
Yeah, I guess because I've been dealing with Chino so long and driving through there hunting animals all my life, I think it's probably appropriate. Adoption of resolution number 20201743.
Point of order. I would like to make a motion that we amend those.
I haven't finished my motion.
He's going to do it.
Okay.
Approving city contract number 2020185 and intergovernmental agreement with the town of Prescott, or Chino Valley, to provide water for commercial use, and amending the original statement to read Special Water Issues Committee, as suggested by Councilman Good, as well as the other part when it talks about our city manager being notified, not the Public Works Director. Those two modifications is what I'd recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Now I'd like to ask the city clerk to read any relative comments. And if you had, I think you had at least one, Sarah, that was both. Just go ahead and read that again.
Okay. Ralph Hess. The next agenda item, 7M, the proposed intergovernmental agreement between Prescott and Chino Valley, demonstrates that you will use this proposed amended water policy to commit to providing water service to private water users, i.e. commercial users within the Chino Valley commercial corridor, not the town of Chino Valley. If you amend the city's water policy as proposed, you will be using other IGAs to obligate the city to agree to provide water services to other private water users outside of city limits. These are conversations we should be having with public participation before you vote on this proposed amendment to the water policy. The next was from Leslie Hoy. I'm late in getting to this, but I have concern about the bolded sentence in the IGA in the section below. I'm pretty sure the person who wrote the IGA means that requests of 2 acre-feet or less would need to follow the, quote, water application procedure for projects of less than 2 acre-feet within city limits. But if a party didn't know that, they could think that all requests for water service that use less than 2 acre-feet will automatically be approved. Because the IGA will be enforced beyond the time that those who wrote and approved it might still be involved with either Prescott or Chino Valley, the provisions must be crystal clear, or they could come back to bite the city as it have previous water agreements. 3.1. City obligations. The city shall accept any request for water service submitted by a proposed commercial customer within the town's commercial corridor after the date of this agreement. Each new commercial customer that provides evidence to the city that, 1, the proposed customer has received planning and zoning approval from the town for the proposed development within the town's commercial corridor, and 2, the proposed customer satisfies all published requirements to receive water service from the city that are generally applicable to all prospective customers of the city within and outside of the city's municipal boundaries. And this is the part that is in bold. The city shall administratively approve any requests for water service which in the city's determination will use less than 2 acre-feet per year. Requests greater than 2 acre-feet per year are subject to review by the city's Water Issues Committee and approval by City Council. Each new commercial customer shall be subject to all relevant city codes, policies, and permit procedures as an out-of-city water user, including the city's landscaping requirements found at Land Development Code Section 6.5. The city further agrees to waive the requirements that out-of-city water users connect to city sewer service and that 60% return flow requirement for properties served pursuant to this agreement. The city will not provide water service for any agricultural projects of any size or for residential service of any type. Howard Mechanic. The council packet states, throughout the development of the 2020 city water policy, the subject of serving water outside of city limits was discussed many times. In fact, most of the important issues here were never discussed. The proposal needs to be tabled to allow a full discussion by both council and the public of all the new issues it brings up. Here are a few of the questions that haven't been answered. It appears the water access charge does not apply here. Is that correct? And why? The 30% water bill surcharge is listed, but what I'm asking about is the one-time fee equivalent to the cost of obtaining the amount of water needed for the project. This is in addition to the water impact fee. That brings up an additional question. Will the users in Chino Valley be charged the water impact fee? I see that the IGA is good for 25 years. After that time, I don't think the city can cut off water to customers based on termination of an IGA. Can the city do that? Section 3 of the IGA states, the city further agrees to waive the requirement that out-of-city water users connect to city sewer service and the 60% return flow requirement for properties served pursuant to this agreement. This will drive us further from safe yield and make it more difficult to negotiate a future safe yield agreement with the other parties in the AMA. What is the overriding public benefit that you claim justifies granting such an exemption? I understand the severe problems with COVID-19 in public meetings, but by submitting written comments ahead of time, the public has no way to comment on all verbal explanations from staff or comments from council or answers to questions that came from a previous member of the public. As you know, many times there are issues explained at meetings that were not clear to the public in the packet. Also, many times there are amendments that we are not aware of until brought to the floor. Why is it so important to rush through without full input from the public? That is the last comment.
Wait, I'd like to request respectfully that we read the one negative comment from the one Chino Valley resident, Christine. I don't know what her last name, how to spell
Her
it.
name's Patricia Uraro.
Patricia Uraro.
It's for 7L.
I feel that in all due fairness, that we hear from her again as an elected official. I would like to hear from the one Chino Valley resident who is in opposition.
Sure.
As a Chino Valley homeowner who has been a resident for the last 20 years, I vote nay to Prescott pumping water out from undercurrent Yavapai residents. The water will benefit homes outside of the present city limits of Prescott. This whole proposition is so transparent, it's almost laughable. Note, I say almost. Just another example of the big guy ranchers selling their land, which they have every right to do, and squashing the little guy. This guy is me. I live off of a well. I'd prefer to not get sucked dry by a community of cracker box homes. I realize the ranchers have been generous in other areas, i.e. donations to the city and private concerns. Maybe that puts a lot of people in their pockets. I don't know, just wondering. As a longtime resident, I would appreciate my needs being met before someone who doesn't even live here yet. If Prescott wants to make money, tuck the water in and sell it to the cracker boxes. Win-win proposition. I really don't know why no one has thought of this lucrative proposition, considering the harebrained one currently on the table. The holes in it are so big you could drive a truck through them.
Thank you.
Clyde, is there any clarity you can bring to anything you heard in the comments that you'd like to comment on?
I'm sure some of it. To start with, this IGA won't provide for new residential accommodations in Chino Valley. There will be no new homes. There will be no new residents as a result of this, at least on new water service. With regard to the 2 acre-foot comment, the commenter was essentially right. Projects under 2 acre feet, as long as they meet our rules and regulations, they will be administratively approved. We don't have the option of turning those down. And that was one of those things we negotiated with Chino Valley about. This way, they won't feel like we have our thumb on them still, like we're still holding them down, and we'll have that final say over their development. If they've approved this development, it's going to use less than 2 acre feet, and it meets our other rules and regulations, we're obligated to approve it. And I struggle to think of what else was commented. Oh, sure. Impact fees, still charged.
Sure.
Additional 30% still charged. Mr. Mechanic referenced a water acquisition cost. The city currently has no such cost. We've never adopted that policy, so that's not something we can apply to these properties either. I believe that's everything. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have based on the comments.
Okay. At this point, let the record show that Honorable Councilman Blair has made a motion, and there's been a second, and I believe it's time to take a vote.
Councilman Blair.
Yes.
Councilman Good.
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing.
No.
Councilwoman Scholl.
Yes.
Councilman Sischka.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr.
Absolutely, yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli.
Yes.
Passes 6-1.
All right. Nothing else on the agenda today. This quote is coming from Benjamin Franklin. They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. This meeting is adjourned.